Welcome, everyone. It is 5 p.m. on the dot Mountain Time. It is 7 p.m. on the dot Eastern Time. We're going to get started in 2 minutes here. 2 minutes. So, everybody, grab a beverage if you need. Get ready. We are going to get started in 2 minutes. Hey, for those who are joining, if you can do us a favor, if you can hear my voice, can you put the number 2 in the chat for us? Just so we can know that audio is working. We are good. We've got 2. Thank you, Madison. And one more test. If you can see 2 smiling faces, Larry's face, my face. I just want to make sure you can see my screen. Can you put the number 1 in the chat?
Yeah,
The number
screenless.
1 in the chat. We got it. Thank you. All right, everybody, go grab a drink. We're going to get started in about 90 seconds here, and I will be right back.
All right.
All right, everyone. It is 5:02 p.m. Mountain Time. It is 7:02 p.m. Eastern Time. We are on type of guys, so let's get started. As always, everyone, I'm honored to be joined by my good friend Larry Cheung. A little bit of background. I met Larry in 2020. He's in the same kind of entrepreneurial but college circles. Larry is a very successful founder of Tiger Way Prep. He helps teenagers succeed in standardized testing. Yes, SAT, but also ACT. And so, as you can imagine, our coachings are very paralleled. I'm Jack Delehey. For those who don't know, I'm the founder of collegeconsulting.us, and we help high school students navigate a 4-year college planning journey, helping them gain admission to their dream schools in what is hopefully the least stressful way possible. So, just about every quarter, Larry joins me here. We've gotten great feedback in the past, and I'm excited for an excellent webinar today. What we'll do is I'll briefly go into intros. Larry will introduce himself, give a little background. The way we like to do these is we usually like to highlight one topic that we're seeing recently in our world. So Larry will talk a little bit about an SAT or ACT topic he's seeing. I'll talk a little bit about a college planning topic in general. And then in the back half, we'll do a live Q&A. So anyone who has questions, please save them for the back half when we ask for them. And then we'll ask parents to put their questions in the chat. As always, I'm attempting at least to record this. And so given that, what we'll do is anyone who is registered, we will send this recording out after. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. Larry, take it away.
Well, good evening, everybody. And it's always a pleasure to do these quarterly webinars with Jack. So a little bit more about myself. My name is Larry Cheung, and I'm the founder at Tiger Way Prep. We're a private coaching company for the SAT and academic tutoring. So what we do at Tiger Way is we really mentor students and serve as really great coaches to help them maximize their potential on the SAT, and along the way, most importantly, build the foundational skills to get better grades and build better study habits that allow them to be even more successful in college. Now, typically, the types of students that we work with, and we're very, very good at this, is students who have, say, a PSAT or SAT score in that 1100 to 1300 range, and we take students from the 1100, 1300 range into that 1400, 1470 area. That's our sweet spot. That's our bread and butter. We do that all day long. And what we've seen is this: the transformation for students when they take scores from 1100, 1200 all the way to the 1400 level is greater access to universities, more scholarship opportunity, a greater academic confidence, and of course, stronger problem-solving skills and an ability to write well and read more critically. So even though our focus is SAT coaching, academic tutoring, we really want to build stronger students, and we couldn't be more proud of the coaches that we have and the student outcomes that we've delivered. So every quarter, I have these webinars with Jack where we talk about SAT, and the industry. And so I'm excited to be here with everyone tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate it as well. And what I'll do at the end, folks, we obviously, as you can imagine, we send a lot of families to Larry and his team when it comes time specifically for standardized testing. I'll put his name up on the screen, and if you obviously need anything, you can reach out. But that's not really the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to give you, well, at this point, 54 minutes of our insights. To be honest, Larry and I were just talking before this, and we do this because we really love nerding out about college admissions, strategies, trends. But I think part of the reason that Larry and I really get together is because deeply we feel that college is just the start. I think a lot of this industry in general treats it like the end. As an example, one way of doing that would be saying, hey, I need to get a 1500 on my SAT so I can get into X school, and then we're done. And I think Larry and I take approach of the confidence that is instilled in a teenager to be able to say, I have a long-term plan. Here are the steps that I need to accomplish that, and then actually work through those steps and see a goal. That is the confidence that makes you realize, wait, getting into your dream school or getting your dream score on your SAT is actually just the start. Because that, what we see year after year after year, is the students who go through our programs who do follow the plans we give them, whether it's college specific or standardized testing specific, they exude confidence in their adulthood. They go off to college as a freshman, and instead of feeling like, I've never really created a multi-year plan, which, by the way, yes, like, especially for my program really is designed to be a 4-year program. For Larry, he can talk on it, but a lot of times high schoolers don't think about past tomorrow. Can you imagine coming up with a 3 to 6 month standardized test study plan? But there's something incredibly powerful in saying, here's a long-term plan, guiding a teenager to do it, that when they go to college, they realize, oh, this is just the start. I now have confidence that I can complete a long-term plan. So, with that said, that's enough of our kind of background and our coaching methodologies. Larry, how about you take it away and talk to us about some recent trends you're seeing in the standardized testing landscape?
Yep, definitely. So, the March SAT was recently administered a couple weeks ago, and results will be out shortly. But because you're on the webinar tonight, I've got some really interesting insights to share with you. And it's this. After every exam, we actually survey our students on what types of topics slash patterns that they saw across the SAT for math and on English. So I'm going to share with you some general themes so that you can more or less plan and anticipate topics that might show up big time on upcoming exams like in May, June, and so forth. So we'll start off with, the math section. So on the math section, one of the biggest topics that showed up on the March SAT was Algebra 1 topics related to lines, slopes, systems of equations. So that's a key takeaway right there. Okay, lines, slopes, systems of equations accounted for such a big part of the March SAT on the math section. Now, as we know, the exam is now digital. So there's module 1 and then there's module 2. Module 2 will determine whether you get a hard or easy one based on the performance from module 1. And what we saw on module 2 was that students who got the harder version of module 2, they reported that they got a lot more word problems. Okay, they got a lot more questions when it came to line slopes and systems of equations. It wasn't a one-step problem, it was a multi-step problem. Let me give you an example of what that means, one-step problem versus multi-step problem. So the College Board has put in a lot of resources into developing a standardized test. And what that means is when they create a question, they actually design the question so that it can be solved in X number of steps. For instance, an easy question on the math section typically takes no more than 3 steps to solve. Okay, so they have a team of scientists who engineer the question in a way where you can, all of us here could try to do the problem, right? But on an easy question, you won't need to go past 3 steps to solve that problem. On a harder question, we're talking about anywhere between 6 and 8 steps. And so what we found on the math section is that if students got the harder version of module 2, the questions related to lines, slopes, systems of equations, if you remember those terms from algebra, those questions, a lot of those students talked about how it required 6 to 8 steps in order to solve the problem, versus if they got the easier version of Module 2, those questions, those multi-step questions were more rare, and there were more questions where you can, just like in Module 1, solve them in 3 steps or less. So what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is the math section going forward has questions where if you get the harder version of the test, they actually get exponentially harder. So in practical terms, that means getting a 750 or higher out of 800 on the math is now harder than it was before because of these multi-step questions. The good news is that for people who are prepared, there are a lot of repetitive patterns and the same types of questions show up over and over. And so our students reported that, like, if they put in a lot of practice time in those types of questions, they felt very comfortable. So that's the good news. The exam is actually more coachable than it was before, but there's still a lot of preparation that's required. So that's math. I want to talk about the English section. Now, in the past, we saw that the harder version of English included a lot of poetry questions. This time around in March, we saw a couple new observations. And the observation is this: the vocab questions on the English section this time tended to be more complex than in previous editions. Let me give you an example. A lot of English vocabulary questions are very context driven, right? So choosing the right answer choice depends on the meaning from that specific sentence, those groups of sentences. This time around, though, on the harder version of the SAT English Module 2, a lot of the vocabulary answer choices, students reported you either knew it or you didn't.
Mm.
So that means that word lists are definitely helpful to study, but more important than just word lists is the importance of what Jack talked about earlier: compounding your knowledge, compounding your experience. And in the case of the SAT, it's reading every day, right? Reading every day, like building your vocabulary every single day, because now the SAT English vocabulary questions, there are so many questions where the answer choices are you literally know it and you don't. And there's no problem solving involved. Like, you could be very smart, high IQ, have great problem solving, but if you don't know the word, you don't know the word, and then you're forced to guess, right? And so the point here is that the English section has now a lot more broad vocabulary terms. And so it really pays dividends to read every single day, compound your knowledge, because that is going to really lead to more, definitely higher score in the SAT, and of course, like greater skills beyond. So that's what we found in the March SAT when it came to math and English, and I just wanted to share that with everyone. You're not going to find this really anywhere else on the internet, right? Because this is survey, like private survey data that I'm sharing with parents here thematically. So would it be fair to assume that a lot of these themes would continue into May and June and beyond? Yes, I do think that would be a fair assumption. So things that I talked about in terms of like its importance and its frequency in showing up, you can expect those same themes to come up in upcoming exams. So for students who know how to approach studying for those topics, they now have a leg up.
I love it. I mean, You heard it there, folks. And by the way, again, this comes from internal survey data from Larry and his many students that he has. I'm interested, Larry. Can I ask a follow-up question here?
Absolutely.
So, we have parents here who are probably looking for actionable steps. What would you recommend if you were a parent on this webinar where you say, hey, my kid's about to take the May SAT. Given that insight, what could they possibly do to prepare themselves in the next 2 months, given those insights?
The good news about the math section is that there's going to be a formula sheet and there's also going to be the Desmos calculator. On
Mm,
the math section, it is absolutely essential to go into the exam having all the formulas memorized, but not only memorized, like really deeply understood. You don't want to go into the math section, like referencing the formula, like trying to say, okay, here's the formula for lines, here's the formula for triangles. Even though the formula sheet will provide it, because you're under a time crunch, you want to know all that ahead of time. Also, getting to know how to graph on the Desmos calculator is a big winning strategy ahead of the exam. So know how to graph lines, graph quadratics, graph exponential
mm,
functions, knowing how to use the graphing function, and then being able to find specific coordinates on the charts, knowing how to navigate all that. And just like you can think of it like a video game, right? If you know how to play the video game in a very well-versed way, even when stakes are high, your performance will be higher. So that's the math section. On the English section, the key takeaway here is have to spend, I'd say, 45 to 60 minutes every single day reading across multiple genres, history, literature, science. That way you get maximum exposure across different genres. And why is that important? Every genre has a certain writing style. Every writing style is determined by, grammatical structures. So the more genres that you expose yourself to, the more writing styles that you're familiar with. And because the English section throws at you, so many different paragraphs, because now it's here's a paragraph, here's a question. Here's a paragraph, here's a question. And all these different questions are in different genres. Being able to uh, be well versed in different genres by being well read, that's, I would say, the best fundamental winning strategy for studying on the English section. There's really no tips and tricks, really. I mean, sure, are there tactics that you can do to get the question right? Sure. But really, to have what I call a sustainable and healthy score improvement has to come from these great daily habits. Because I think Jack and I would both agree, you can have two students who have 1500s. One of them can simply just be a great test taker. One of them actually has amazing critical thinking, right? Like which student, do you want to be? I think most people would want to be the second one. Because with great critical thinking, in the future, you could take the graduate level exams, the medical MCAT, the GMAT, and you would do equally well because you've got that critical thinking. And it's not just like trying to cut corners, crack the code, or things like that. And that's why Jack and I focus so much on the fundamentals. And fundamentals definitely take time. And with enough time, that's where the real progress is made.
I love it. Let's actually, on that note, let's talk about critical thinking. Let's talk about critical thinking in terms of college admissions strategy. So, folks, parents who are joining this, I often talk about high leverage activities that can be completed when it comes to college admissions. And I really want to stress the importance here as we transition into kind of my coaching, 10 or 15 minutes here on thinking critically about how your children, or if high schoolers, you're on this, fantastic, I love it, how you are spending your time in high school. And I really want you to think about inputs to outputs. I'm going to share my screen in a second here, and you're going to see a slide that I often refer to, which is the four categories of admission. Those four categories of admission are number one, high school grades and the rigor of classes taken. Still to date, the most important category in all of college admissions. Your high school grades and the rigor of classes taken. But I want you to note something. High school grades and rigor of classes taken take 4 years of effort to do well. So it's the most important. Takes 4 years. All right. Second most important category with an asterisk because yes, we still do live for some schools in a test optional world, but the second most important category is standardized testing. If you have elite number one and two, that gets you a seat at the table. If you don't have elite number one and two, it becomes much more difficult, especially when we're talking about the types of schools that our mutual students apply to, the top 20, the top 50 schools. One and two. Now, here's what I want you to note though. Inputs to outputs. High school grades most important, take 4 years to accomplish. The second most important factor in all of college admissions, if you are targeting the elite schools, standardized testing. Larry, on average, what would you say it takes your typical student to get their, let's call it their dream score, their top score? How long does it take? And I think you can probably see where I'm going here.
Yeah, our data suggests that it's roughly 6 to 9 months. So for instance, let's say someone starts as a sophomore, sophomore fall all the way to say, just by the end of the academic year, just before the summer of junior year, or say junior summer till, the end of the year. So 6 to 9 months. So it takes time.
6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
It takes time. Here's what I also want to say. It takes about 1/8 the amount of time as it takes to complete high school. So certainly takes time, but from an inputs to outputs, 1/8 the amount of time to get the second most important quality in a college admissions profile typically. Where I'm going with this is I often teach my students to assess how much leverage do they have with each activity they accomplish. Most of our students have a lot going on, right? They go to a full day of high school. They do after school activities. They come home. They, have dinner with their family. Then they grind out homework. Repeat. I know what high school is like. Yes, I've got some gray hairs now, but it wasn't that long ago I was a high schooler. And I know what that's like. It's a lot. And so I think it's really important for high schoolers to assess, where am I spending my time? Am I just doing this because someone somewhere told me that I should sign up for my seventh club or activity? Or am I really assessing what the inputs are to outputs? And so on that notion, students, there is no more efficient lever in all of college admissions, and I'm adamant about this, than improving your standardized test score. High school grades may have the most impact, but it takes 4 entire years. They cannot be ignored, but it takes 4 years. There's no more efficient way to, in a fairly relatively short amount of time, drastically improve your chances of dream school admission, of scholarships, etc., than to simply say, I'm going to learn how to take this test, SAT, ACT. It is the most efficient input to output ratio in the entire college admissions world, hands down. So I just want to bring that up. Recently, I've seen a trend with my students, with our team students, who are asking to do more, more, more. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do that? I think we're now in an era where students have so much stimuli. It actually, our coaching has almost shifted over the last decade to filtering out the noise. And for those who are on this call today, I can't stress enough, there is no more efficient lever to be pulled from an inputs time to outputs, second most important factor in all of college admission ratio, than your standardized test. As an example, I'll just let you know. Now, this is obviously anecdotal, but it does involve me. And I think a lot of people who come to these webinars like to hear my story. I am certain that the 4 month sprint that I put in, now I actually ended up submitting my ACT, but the 4-ish month sprint that I put in, where I would wake up every morning an hour before school when I was a junior in high school and practice the ACT, study problems. I have an entire system to go through. Okay, did I get that one wrong? It goes in the left pile. Did I get it right? It goes in the right pile. And I efficiently did that. And that was the 4 months of effort that absolutely got me into Vanderbilt. That got me my 33 on the ACT, which, yes, actually, now that I say that, like a 33 on the ACT applying to Vanderbilt, you would be below the middle 50%. But at the time, that got me the 33, which got me a seat at the table, which got me into Vanderbilt. 4 months compared to 4 years. So I think that that's the first thing that I want to discuss is I hope students have the ability, or parents, you have the ability to help your student every once in a while step out, take a bird's eye view. What are we doing and why? Because these days, my goodness, if you go ask your cousin's neighbor's dog walker, the amount of noise that I hear that is fed to 14-year-olds on TikTok about do this club activity, do this community service, do this, do that, pack your schedule, and then load it up on the Common App, and you're going to get into your dream school. It's not efficient. And I actually think it's doing our students a disservice. The second thing that I want to highlight here does correlate, and that's the notion of time. It's the notion of time. You'll see here the fourth category of admission: high school grades, standardized test score, college essays, which is personal supplement, personal statement and supplement. By the way, this can really just be your Common App in general, how you package yourself into something that's going to get reviewed for 8 minutes. That's typically what we call the third most important. And then four is what we use a lot in our program, which is called your story. How you are going to tell your dream school, hey, this is who I am. This is the path that I want to go on. If admitted to your school, here's what I'll do. And oh, by the way, here's what I've been doing over high school that aligns with that path. That is your story. Here's the truth. The reason why time is so important in this process, and the reason why we stress that college planning should be a 4-year journey. And yes, by the way, we do accept sophomores and we do accept juniors. By the way, we accept juniors up to March 1st. So if you're a parent of a junior watching this, no, we won't accept you now. But we do this very particular because guess what? Your story, to do this properly, what you see on this screen, it takes time. It takes time if you want an authentic story. And I've actually have several new team members who have joined my team now. It's pretty cool, but our team continues to grow. And I'll tell you this, Nick Krako here, he's now one of our college advisors. He's worked in multiple Ivy League college admissions departments. He even wrote a book, an entire book. It's published on Amazon. You can go find it. Type in his name, Dr. Nick Krako. And he says in college admissions, the single thing that you want said about your application is it is authentic. You know what leads to an authentic story? Time. Showing college admissions that you didn't just put this on your application a week before college applications were due. No, no, no. You've been doing this since 9th grade or 10th grade into 11th, 12th. You've been honing this passion of yours, this authentic story. We actually have data to back this up. So just like Larry does internal surveys all the time, so do we. And a handful of years ago, I actually went down this rabbit hole of saying, I know, like in my heart of hearts, I know that the students who join me as 9th graders or 10th graders outperform the students who join later on. But I actually like legitimately wanted to see this. And so I took a class a handful of years ago, and I actually then did an internal assessment of, okay, all of these students have now just applied to their dream schools. What are the odds? What are the chances? Their top choice school, their first school, meaning if it's Harvard, it's Harvard. What are the chances that they will actually get into their dream school? And what was fascinating, I knew it was going to be the case. I didn't know how correlated this was going to be. I then retroactively said, out of all of my seniors, when did they start working with us? When did they start working with us? And it was crazy. And then I plotted it. And you can see on the bottom is number of months before application that they started working with us. And at the top was our internal assessment, right? I could say it like this. Okay, show me a student's profile, application, their story, everything, and I'll go, I think they have a 27% chance of getting into insert, right? At this point, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've got a pretty good assessment of it. Here it is, right here. Average admissions chance at Dream School versus months of significant college prep. Now, significant college prep in ours, it was just, when did you actually start working with us? When did you start prioritizing this? But there's a reason why this exists. There's a reason why this exists, and it's because of this. It's because these days, and according to Nick, and according to everything I read, college admissions departments want to see authenticity, and there's no better way to show an authentic story saying, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm interested in, and oh, by the way, this is real because you've been working on it for a while, because you've been prioritizing it for a while. So, anyway, I wanted to share that time is important in college admissions, and prioritizing high leverage activities with that time is just as important. With that said, I think we have hit exactly the 30-minute mark. So, Larry, bravo. I think we nailed it.
Excellent. Yeah, and
Awesome.
a lot of what Jack talked about is absolutely true, right? So on our website at tigerwayprep.com, when coaches join our program to as staff members, we actually ask some of our coaches to write a blog post about their high school journey and even detail like what they did for extracurricular activities. And so, some of our SAT coaches, academic tutors, they go to great schools, Ivy League schools. We don't like to always say, okay, oh, Ivy League train, blah, 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 right? At the end of the day, it's about how passionate, are our coaches. But yes, we have coaches who have attended Brown, Stanford, Yale, USC, and the theme that I see in their blog posts is they spent their 3, 4 years in high school like pursuing the same activity in depth. So what Jack says about, really finding that passion, absolutely true. And by the way, Jack, like, these high school, these high school journey blog posts, right? Like if it helps you to solidify your point, you can like, take our website's blog post and like share it with your community. Yeah, so it's on our website.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yes, and then you
I,
can be like, from these stories, you can see
yeah,
why time matters, right? So you can like point to our coaches, right, and be like, they got into this school and now coach at Tiger Way with other students because they had this passion, they had this great story to tell. That's how they got into Brown. That's how they
right.
got into Stanford, right? How they got into Yale.
I love it. No, that's awesome. I would love to highlight that. I mean, I am deeply, deeply convicted, and I've never been more convicted that uh, assessing high leverage opportunities and then using the proper amount of time to actually use those high leverage activities, that is the key to college admission success, hands down. Right. And that's really what I've based a lot of our coaching off of. So, with that said, this has been fantastic so far. Folks, we are now going to switch gears. We're going to do live Q&A. Here's what we'll do. We'll just go through. This is always kind of fun. I'll go just read questions. If it's test prep related, Larry will chime in, offer his insight. If it's college planning in general related, I'll give you answers. And if it's somehow both, which sometimes it can be, we'll both answer. We will go until either all questions are done and no one has any more, or until the time is up. So let's see what we've got. All right, Wesley, great to hear from you. Wesley's father in our program. Larry, are you willing to share a daily reading list to use for study purposes? Oh, interesting. I like it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes. Uh, f- so there's many ways you can approach this, right? So, some parents and students they might think, okay, the reading list is about a set of books. No, 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 it's not about that. You know why? It's because the new digital SAT is very much about giving you a paragraph and then giving you a question related to that paragraph, giving you a paragraph in a different genre, and then giving you a question related to that paragraph. So what that means is reading college level publications like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, The Economist, uh, even like National Geographic, right? Like those are the types of content pieces that a teen wants to get a lot of exposure to frequently because that is the same rhythm and the same kind of like pacing that they're going to encounter on the SAT. Read an article, answer a question. Read an article, answer a question. And all these articles can be in different genres. That's why publications from the Wall Street Journal, the Times, so important. I think it's very important to not spend as much time on publications that have language that's too simplified, right? Because then that might underprepare them for the more complex sentence structure on the English SAT. So hope that answers your question.
I like it. Great, great recommendations. All right, from Dawn, you mentioned sweet spot of scores. If my child was lower than that on PSAT or this coming SAT scores, thoughts, success record of working with those lower scores. Kind of a
Yeah,
lot.
absolutely.
Okay, but you got it?
Yeah, so the first thing is to not be discouraged. Everybody starts off somewhere, right? So that's the first thing. So the mindset is really important. Don't think that because it's a low score that an aspirational outcome can't happen. Because once you have that kind of objection, then that will translate into not studying as hard, not really kind of like going all into the study process. I've got a great story for you that will answer your question. There was a student that we recently featured in our Substack newsletter. His name is Odon, and he's a student from Africa. Okay, and he found out about Tiger Way through our newsletter because his brother watched my finance YouTube channel and then found out that I also run Tiger Way. That's the backstory. So Odon started with a 1,000 PSAT score. Okay, 1,000. And I think he told me his math at the time was like in the 400s. He did a little bit better on the English. He and our private coach, and I'm so proud of them. And I'm not saying that we can have this kind of example like all the time, but would you believe that he got a 1560 on his SAT?
No way.
I was just so shocked. I mean, I'm a the program founder, and obviously, I want to see everyone be successful, but at the same time, right? Like I also understand like what are some realistic kinds of expectations. So I couldn't be happier to see this. And can I share my screen, Jack? Is that possible?
Yeah, go for it. I
Okay.
think you
Okay.
should have permission.
Okay. So look at this. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Yeah. So look at this. So this is Odon, right? I featured him in our newsletter, and I'm so proud of him. See, you can see it took about a year for this kind of outcome. So like Jack talked about the theme time, right? Jack's college planning program, which is excellent, by the way, takes 3, 4 years. Okay. SAT, tutoring, okay, 6 to 9 months. It's not a lot of time in the grand scheme of things, but it really can change life outcomes here. And we're so proud of him. 1540, not 1560, excuse me. So he was like at a 1,000. And then with a score like that, he got into University of Notre Dame early action. So
Wow.
he's from Rwanda. He's one of the few people from his country to get into these great T20 schools because of his SAT score, right? So he took the SAT multiple times. His PSAT was where he started off in that, 1,000 range. And then I think he told us that he eventually got like a 1,300 on his first exam, 1320, 1340, and then supercharged it to like a 1,500. Now, I want to just make sure that, our parents and our friends here understand that those are not typical outcomes. Okay. Jack can't promise, and I can't promise, miracles, right? But what we can promise is that if students work hard, if they're committed, like hard work never goes to waste. I mean, I've never seen someone work hard throughout long periods of time and then it go to waste. I don't think I've seen that. I don't think Jack's seen that either. Like people work hard through, a compounded period of time. Like typically there's going to be some kind of quite good outcome. So I hope that answers your question as to like, can lower scores get higher? Generally speaking, the answer is absolutely. So if someone's starting with a 900 or a 950, don't be discouraged. There's lots of people, lots of students who start from that range too. But then the expectation would be, okay, if they're at the 900 range, then we talk about target one, target two. Target one would then have to be, say, 1,200, right? And then target two would then be 1,350 to 1,400. So it's not 900 to 1,400. That's not the right mindset. It's like kind of like any kind of business or relationship. There's steps to it, right? So there's target one, and then there's target two. Before you get to the final target, you got to clear target one first. And so, we'll have a plan as to how to get to target one, and then once your skill set is at a certain point, how you can revamp your strategy then to get to target two. because believe it or not, a student is transformed in terms of the way they think, their skills once they reach target one. And so, to get to target two, another mindset, another skill set needs to be developed. So yes, we've taken students from 1100 to 1400. If someone's starting from lower, I'd say like, 900 to 1200, 1250, very, very doable. But then it's about time, right? To go then from 1200 to 1400, perhaps it'll take a little longer than 6 to 9 months, maybe a year or so, a year, a couple months.
Very, very motivational.
Yeah.
Really cool to see. And yeah, just to add to this, Don, standardized testing, a lot of it is about understanding how to take the test, right? The SAT doesn't have anything on there that any student will learn beyond 10th grade, right, Larry? Like, I mean, it's not the questions are not astronomical. It's learning how to take the test
Yeah.
and learning how to be consistent
Yeah.
with your test prep. So on that note, Wesley, great question again. How many hours involved in those 6 to 9 months would you say, Larry? My guess is you're going to say something about just consistency is key, but I'm interested too.
Yeah, so our program's timeline is for 6 months is typically 36 hours. But if you factor in the fact that, homework should be done, right? During that period of time, along with coaching, I'd say 60 to 100 hours. And honestly, we don't want to put a limit to like the number of self-study hours that a student should have. So even though coaches work with students at Tigerway with 36 hours, honestly, the more time that a student spends on their own on top of the coaching, that raises the probability that they're going to do really well on the exam. So it's just like with anything else, the more time you put into it, right, the more you get out of it. But if you had to have a specific answer, then I'd say, 60 to give a range, 60 to 100 hours.
I like it. And by the way, anecdotally, spot on too. Something happened to me between, yeah, like late junior year where I really, like, I just remember what it was like. I got a little bit more mature and I myself took ownership of my college future. And it's funny because I had like test prep help before that, my parents had paid for. And it wasn't until I actually just took the time to really deeply, like I'm talking every morning, practice for an hour on my own before
Yeah.
going to school.
I did
That
that too. I did that too. Oh my God. Yes, I did that too.
really, I
Yeah.
mean, that doesn't surprise me. But it wasn't until then when I actually took it seriously and said, I'm just going to do an hour every
Yeah.
single day relentlessly. It was amazing how quickly, right, my score skyrocketed. And like I said, that is literally the score that got me a seat at the table at Vanderbilt. Wesley, isn't four your story told inside three? Ah, it is such a fantastic question. Yes, but let me tell you, if it's only told inside number three, you are not getting considered. So this is where I think if you received poor coaching, it would be, oh yeah, yeah, just tell your story in the college essay and you're good. Absolutely not. What we coach at collegeconsulting.us is to think of your story like a thread. And that thread goes through the entire application that will get read for, on average, 8 minutes. 8 minutes. That starts with things like the activities section, bleeds into the honors and awards section, bleeds into the teacher recs, bleeds into the college, the high school counselor letter of recommendation. Yes, Wesley, that's why actually in section 3 of our program, we teach students to get asked for their letter of rec early so that they can talk to their guidance counselor about it. So their guidance counselor can mention that thread of a story. Then we go to the additional information section. Yeah, that section in the application that very few people use. We teach students how to use that effectively so that when we get to the essays, the thread has already been there. And now the essays get to shine a gorgeous, beautiful light on that thread. But here's where some people think, oh, so I've got to write my whole essay about that story. That's not actually the case. Typically, what we say is the personal statement is where you can really, that's your time to shine when it comes to how you write. How you write. One of the best essays I've ever read, ever. Hands down, the most impressive. Was a student who wrote about his weekly trips with his grandfather to the fast food restaurant Whataburger. That had nothing to do with his story. But the Common App personal statement isn't where you need to hammer home your story. It's about showing your writing ability. The supplemental essays are about what is written. That is where you can shine that light on the story because it's going to say things like, tell me about what has led you to this time. It's going to say, tell me why you're a fit for, let's actually use it, Wesley, Stanford, right? And that is where you can shine the light on the story. So I think a lot of students out there think, oh, yeah, I just tell my story inside number three. That is true, but it is not exclusive. And in fact, if a student is only using the essay section to write about their story, they're missing out on huge opportunities. Okay, Dawn, Jack, you won't take juniors now, but Larry, do you take juniors for test prep now?
Yeah,
Larry, take juniors?
yes, the answer is yes. We
Okay.
don't, yeah, yep. So we typically don't take seniors, but juniors, absolutely.
Love it. And just so you know, Don, yes, well, we don't publicly take juniors. In fact, I think on my application form now, we've actually eliminated juniors. We every year we take a handful, and our guarantees are void because we can only stand by our guarantees of one of your top five dream schools and at least $80,000 in college scholarships, which I think are some pretty good guarantees if students join before March 1st of junior year. But every year, I'd say for the last five, six, we've had one or two juniors who join after, except that the guarantees are void. And you know what's funny? We're 100% with those students hitting the guarantees anyway. And in fact, last year, Socket, who is now a senior, he applied to eight schools. He got into seven of his top eight, including his top choice of computer science at Michigan. So I just give you that, Don, because if, after watching this, you do have an interest, put my contact at the end. You can certainly reach out. But obviously, publicly, we state we don't take any juniors. Anna, my son is a sophomore interested in chemistry and physics, but has no activities related to this. He is a varsity swimmer, and that takes up a lot of time along with a crushing school workload. Is it too late for him to craft a compelling story? I'll take this one. Sophomore? Not at all. Certainly not too late. I think you just should have heard it, Anna. We accept students up to March 1st of junior year. So if you're actually looking for a line in the stand of the time where I, Jack Delehey, void our guarantees, it's March 1st of junior year. So if he's a sophomore, you still got plenty of time. But what I will say is, you saw the chart, right? Bring up the chart again. Every day counts. Every day counts, right? Every day that goes by, it just gets harder and harder. And yes, I've arbitrarily made my deadline, March of junior year, so somewhere around here. Because, a big part of it is I had to put a line in the sand myself. Here's what I would say. If, again, I hear he's taking crushing school workload. I hear this all the time, and he's a varsity swimmer, so he's doing, sports after school. Sounds a lot like myself when I was in high school. I did three sports: soccer, hockey, lacrosse. Uh, Played varsity in all three of them. Had that's 6 days a week, and I was taking the hardest classes in my school. So I get it. I would certainly, if you're wondering, is there still time? There absolutely is time. But I would definitely encourage a sit down with your child about what are our priorities. Show your child this webinar about high leverage activities. Like, think of a lever and think of what are those high leverage activities. And if you're still struggling with how do I craft a compelling story, I often give the Saturday morning test as an example to families. The Saturday morning test goes like this. It's a hypothetical, but it works like a charm to help students find a unique thread, like I was talking about with Wesley, that can go throughout a story. Hypothetical is this. Uh, you didn't give your son's name. Okay, so your son, Anna, wakes up on a Saturday morning. He has no swimming. He has no homework to do. He cannot access screens, TVs, iPads, phones, anything. And he can't go back to bed. What would he do? Many times students look at me and go, what? But here's why this is important, because the answer to that question, Anna, can help him find an authentic story that he is proud of. If that is, you know what? I'd sit and do a 1,000-piece puzzle. Start pulling that thread. What is it about a puzzle that he really finds interesting? Is there something else that we can utilize with this puzzle creation desire to actually show schools what he's passionate about? The answer to that question, by the way, for a student last year, Larry, you brought up Notre Dame. You can go on collegeconsulting.us/blog and look this up. But Emily, I asked Emily the Saturday morning test example. You know what she said? She said she would tinker on projects in her garage. That answer is what led us down to her tinkering on a project in her garage that she ended up submitting a provisional patent to. And if you go on the blog and you control F for Emily or Notre Dame not only accepted her, they wrote her a handwritten note begging her to attend. And you know what they called out in that handwritten note? Her provisional patent for her tinkering project. Why? It was an authentic story. If you're wondering, Anna, does your son still have time? Yes, absolutely. But I would encourage you all to have a sit down and really start assessing where every hour of your son's day is going. Because there's a chance, if I was in the room with you all, I might pick apart some of that and say, are there some higher leverage activities you could do? Bella, what if you don't know what you want to do? Oh, Bella, great question. Here's what I'm going to say. Bella, feel free to wait, I'm trying to think. Is this my Bella? Bella G. I don't know. Uh, I was just trying to wonder if this is a student in our program. If I had a last name there, I could actually see. Because that would change how I guide you, right? If you're in our program, Bella, I have, a million ways. You can talk to your one-on-one coach 24/7. But if you're not in our program, I would encourage you, Bella, go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jack Delehey. If you just Google Jack Delehey, or sorry, YouTube Jack Delehey in the search bar, it'll be the first to come up. What you're going to look for is the entire YouTube video called Different is Greater Than Difficult. I walk step by step through a process to actually determine what you might be interested in, and then overlap that with a medium that could be impressive for college admissions. If you're wondering more like, what if you don't know what to do in terms of a college major? I would actually recommend mymajors.com has a really good, entirely free quiz that you can take that would recommend that. And then lastly, what you can do is you can take a 16 personalities test. That'll teach you a lot about yourself and what you might not know about yourself. And then you can actually just Google, it'll spit out a 4-letter code that teaches you more about yourself. And I'm ESTJ as an example. And then you can Google what majors, what careers, even what colleges are good for ESTJ. And it's amazing what'll be recommended. So those are some spots that I would start. Madison, love it. You're a sophomore. Thank you for joining. This is awesome. I'm a sophomore interested in becoming a plastic surgeon and attending Stanford. I'm in all honors classes and I'm taking an engineering elective so I can prepare myself for the STEM field. Cool. Do you guys know of any medical mentors I can get in contact with so I can learn more about the field and maybe put some things on my resume if that makes sense? Wow. Madison, super cool. Let me just get your other question here too. Another question, how do I best demonstrate my interest in Stanford beyond just applying? Okay. I can take a stab at this one too. So, Madison, hate to break it to you, I don't. So, I'll just be honest there. I don't know any medical mentors. But here's what I really like is this question alone shows me that you're thinking the right way. So I want to give you props here. When it comes to your story, you want to look in the future and say, okay, let's use Stanford. When you get in the front doors of Stanford, if Stanford gives you one of those 4% acceptances, what are you going to do? How are you going to make Stanford proud? That's what they want to see, right? And so if you already have this plan where you know you want to be a plastic surgeon, bravo to you. When I was a sophomore, I certainly had no idea. But if you have that, utilize that and now work backwards. In terms of actually hooking you up with a medical mentor, no, I don't know. I can't do that. But your thinking is spot on. What I would encourage you to do is not just pigeonhole yourself into, if I don't find a medical mentor, my whole story is ruined. Try different avenues. Throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. You're a sophomore in high school. I would love to say that every medical mentor is going to reach out to you and just give you a bunch of internships. It's just not the case. That's not the world we live in. Try different avenues and be willing to explore things on your own. Be willing to explore things on your own. It might sound silly, but are there online communities you can join of aspiring plastic surgeons? Are there books you can read? Are there YouTube channels you can follow? Throw stuff at the wall and be willing to see what sticks. Go the route of trying to find a medical mentor. I love it. It's exploring your passion, and that is critical. but don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't get stuck if you can't find a mentor. Keep trying. That's the kind of entrepreneurial mindset that I love to instill in my students. If you have a passion, explore that passion. If you find an avenue and then get stopped, go in another avenue. That alone is going to impress Stanford, which answers your second question as well. Lastly, I'll just say on the Stanford front, every year we have students who are, interested in Stanford. And what I would encourage you to do is actually learn about Stanford. Like, here's what's shocking to me is when students who are Stanford quality are like, yeah, I'm gonna apply to Stanford and Harvard and Princeton and Duke and Vanderbilt and all the top 20s, but they don't actually know why Stanford is different than Harvard. You should definitely know that because in your supplemental essay, when they ask why Stanford, you shouldn't just say why Stanford because it's a good school. You should know like exactly how they're different than Harvard. And by the way, it's not that hard to learn. You can talk to students who went to Stanford, or you can actually just go and deeply explore their website. What is Stanford's motto versus Harvard's motto? But these are the nuances. Now, when you're talking about a 50% application admissions rate, you don't need to do this as much. But when you're talking about the Stanfords of the world, yes, you should deeply know how Stanford is actually different than Harvard, as an example. Hope that helps, Madison. Can you share resource info for pricing costs, both for test prep and for college admission side? I don't know about you, Larry. I'll let you speak for test prep. Mine is entirely personalized for the family. So if you want, what I'll do is I'll just put a link to our application page. Again, just to be very clear, Don, if you have a junior, you will have to select, I believe, other this time of year because we've closed it to juniors, which is fine. But the link that I just put in the chat is where you can submit an application and then we'll review. Again, everything that we do is entirely personalized, so I can't give you something here. I don't know how you want to respond to that, Larry.
Yeah, so for us, our program director discusses this information on like a brainstorm call with parents because there's different timelines. So, if you like book a call with us, we can walk you through the options and things like that. I'll also send the link here as well. So, um, and yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's see. We've got Annie Yang. Thank you. You're very welcome. Do your essay tutors work for your company? Do you use a separate review company? Don, all of our essay reviews are in-house. In fact, we have an extensive essay review process. Every single one of our students in our program gets their essay reviewed 6 times minimum, offering personalized feedback via Loom. That's how we draw the line. We will never, ever touch a student's essay, like ever change a single word or letter, because that's where we draw the line ethically. But we provide personalized video reviews via Loom, so everything is audible, and then it's up to the student to change. We have minimum required 6 rounds of essay feedback. Yes, that's back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, 6 times, and maximum infinity. Our students' essays are elite, to say the least. Okay, Madison, thank you. Awesome. Glad you took that to heart. Madison, also, props to you before you sign off. You're a sophomore in high school and you joined this. Love that. That's awesome. Thanks for joining. Don, thank you. You're welcome. And Larry, calendar link. And then let's see. I think I saw before we wrap up here, someone raised their hand. If you raised your hand, type your question in the chat. I'll give it like a minute. I think I saw a raised hand. Maybe it was just a celebration. So I'll give it like 30 seconds. And then if I don't see another question in the chat, we'll sign off. And we nailed it, Larry. We're at 59 minutes, 58.
Excellent timing.
All right, we'll give it like 10 more seconds. Okay, well, if the question comes in as I'm saying goodbye, we'll answer it. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. I truly, honestly, I love doing these. Larry has a lot going on and he donates his time quarterly to do these. College planning is really like what I'm deeply, deeply passionate about and helping students really reach their absolutely full potential. And Larry's passion is also helping students reach their full potential. So I think we very much are aligned on this front. If you have any questions at all, here you go. This is where you can reach us. By the way, we don't often give out, our personal email. We have things like booking pages, etc. But seriously, because you joined this webinar, if you have any questions, we've got Larry at tigerwayprep.com, Jack at collegeconsulting.us. You can shoot us an email, ask any questions you want. We're here for you. like I said, we love doing these. I don't know about you, Larry, but I love doing this every
Yeah,
quarter. It's
I do
really
too.
fun for me. So yeah, I
Yeah, I
appreciate it.
look forward to them. Yes.
All right, awesome. So everybody, and I want to make sure, is test prep into account? Yeah, nice. Okay. You answered. Thank you, Larry. All right, so everyone who was registered for this, you will be receiving the recording of this. So if you want to go back and watch it, and given that, I'll say goodbye to everyone. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Larry.